they're just as sensitive as likely chickens or ducks or geese to dying if they're infected with a highly pathogenic version, which is not what happened with this universal ostrich farm. So we've got data from the CFI that confirms that it's a reassortment with low pathogenicity virus. We have evidence that they actually have antibodies and have an immune response. The claims that the soil is contaminated with this virus shed from birds that have no symptoms is ridiculous, because the evidence that they're using to support this claim is they took water that was contaminated with the virus. Not they, but they're referring to a scientific paper where this was done. And they filtered that water with a 200 micron filter. Now, the size of the virus is 140 microns. So it goes through the filter. But most other viruses, bacteria, unicellular organisms like fungi, they can't go through that filter. So you have a highly filtered water, which is then kept in the dark in a metal container at near zero. And they were able to show that a year later, no longer than a year, but up a year later, they could still get active virus out of that. But in reality, when you have virus that's shed on the ground, it actually is inactivated by the sunlight with UV light, causes massive mutation of RNA. This is an RNA virus. It's very unstable. When you look at influenza itself, how is it normally transmitted? It's in an aerosol, in tiny little droplets that are breathed in, and then the virus can replicate in the upper airways. This is not how influenza is transmitted, not in people or in animals. It's usually from being a suspension in the air. And so if this falls down to the ground, the sunlight destroys it, microbial action destroys it. And if this seems like, to put it to make people feel more at ease, maybe not. We have tens of thousands of these geese and ducks that are flying overhead during migration, season, and they're landing on the parks and the schoolyards, and where I live in the dikes, and their excrement is all over the ground, right? Now we know that these birds have been an active transmitters of the virus to these commercial farms for the last few years. There's been only one case of H5N1 influenza in Canada in the last few years, and that was a 13-year-old girl who had health issues. Fortunately, she recovered, but that's the only case of H5N1 in people. And we haven't seen this in our pets and dogs, that are people are walking them through these parks, again, amongst all this excrement. If this virus was able to survive in the soil, as has been suggested by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, then why are we not getting special warnings from Health Canada and from the inspection agency with respect to the risks of these wild birds that are flying
Just
overhead
everywhere
all
we
the time?
walk through parks. I live in Kelowna. We walk through city parks. Geese are everywhere. They
Exactly.